You are listening to Waywut. This is a rabbit hole podcast where we cover topics ranging from sports to true crime and pop culture to weird facts. Just a little bit of everything. Really, it's just a couple of guys taking turns to present weird topics to each other. We publish episodes weekly and truly appreciate you joining us. Now that we got all that out of the way, let's get this episode started. Here we go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Waywut. My name is Darrell Holiday. I will be today's, main host, I guess. I don't know.
Main talker.
Yeah.
Topic bringer.
The tale teller. And I'm here alongside with Epstein's jail guard, Jason.
Oh, yeah. I failed on my job. Or did I?
No, I was going to say, did you? I mean, as you know, my intros for you always tie into things just a smidge.
Yeah, funny you say that. I was just talking to Ashley about that.
Well, it's not directly about him. I'm going to spoil that now, but still. All right. Today, I'm going to start with a bit of a small town boy rant because both of us are a couple of small town boys. We know the life. So, with all of these billion-dollar lotteries that we've been seeing lately, this may come as a surprise, but I really want to win one.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
And not like one of those ones where you're like one of like 10 winners. I want to win it all by myself.
Yeah.
Just where I get it all.
What the hell was splitting that?
I want the whole billion. And personally, I feel like I deserve to win more than everybody else that wants to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, would you get it all in a lump sum or would you get it in payments?
Lump sum. No, actually, no. Payments. I would do payments.
You would do payments? I would do lump sum.
Makes you have to be more disciplined. But speaking of discipline, I would get a very big house. Not a mansion, but a big house that's built in a small town that doesn't have any rich people there.
Huh?
Yeah. And then I would donate money to the local politicians. I would take part in lots of charity work for city improvements. I would do fundraising for the school. I would help local businesses. And then once they all depended on me, I would rule that town with an iron fist.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like many of movie plots.
Yeah. I mean, now, as far as I know, in the small town we grew up in, we didn't have like a bunch of dead people or trafficked people or anything weird like that. For all I know, it could have just been covered up really, really well. But just for good measure, though, in my case, I would run for county coroner and totally buy my way into that office. Just, throw money around. Yeah. I don't think people really understand what kind of power that position has. I mean, I didn't for the longest. My uncle's an assistant coroner, and that's how I ended up learning about a lot of that.
What kind of power are you talking about?
Well, that's what I'm about to go into now. In most states, you don't even have to be a doctor or even like a forensic CSI person. You can just be some dude. So that
somebody knows how to take a pulse.
There. I'm automatically qualified. And then what's really cool is in some counties, depending on the state, they're the only one with the power to arrest the sheriff.
The coroner?
The coroner.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, like they can. I've seen instances where, like, say a DA won't bring charges on somebody, but what the coroner could do is a coroner inquest, which essentially has the coroner acting as a judge.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's really cool.
They're always portrayed to be the real goofy or scary or whatever type person in most movies.
I'm about to ruin horror films for you. Anytime there's a scene in the morgue, whatever guy works in the morgue is always eating.
Yes.
Every single time.
Yeah.
It's just it is a visual way to show that person's
it doesn't bother
blasé. Yeah, where they don't really care.
Yeah, gone in 60 seconds. He's eating that sandwich, then he just puts it down on their body.
Yeah, they always do that.
Yeah, just walk away.
Yeah, I mean, and with the position of coroner, all you have to do is, you fix a cause of death here and there for the people that matter, and then you have a bunch of important people that owe you favors.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's like,
cause
oh
of death is
yeah, you don't
big.
want people knowing that your wife OD'd. That's fine. I could say that she had a heart attack.
Yep.
We could say. Now, with all this being said, I have no business ever running for any kind of office. I mean, I promise you that I will be easily corrupted. I will. If you see me on a ballot, do yourself a favor and do not vote for me. Unless I'm super rich, because then it would probably be in your best interest to vote for me, because obviously I'm not somebody to be trifled with.
Not with that much money.
Speaking of people that have no business determining cause of death, that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to go over some very peculiar instances where officials declare a death a suicide when that appears to be, in some cases, pretty much impossible. And I'm not doing
Impossible.
Epstein. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not doing Epstein. I say that now. I, I, I think the people that want to know about his death they already
Already
know
died.
plenty about it. They already know.
Oh,
Yeah. Everybody that wants to research that, they're like, oh no, look at the ears of the body, and oh, he broke his hyoid bone, and blah 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 blah. So, yeah, it's I'm not covering that. All right. So the following deaths that I'll be going have not had their cause of deaths changed, at least not at the time of us recording this. They
okay.
are still the same. On September 2nd, 2010, 911 in St. Augustine, Florida, got a call from the home of St. Johns County Sheriff's Deputy Jeremy Banks, saying that he thinks his girlfriend, 24-year-old Michelle O'Connell, just shot herself.
He thinks she just shot herself.
Yep, he thinks that she just did.
Okay.
Sheriff's Deputy Jeremy Banks. The responding department was the St. John County Sheriff's Department. So the guys that he worked with. His fellow deputies found him crouching at the bathroom door, holding his phone. Michelle was dead on the floor with Jeremy's service pistol lying next to her and a handful of pills in her pocket. On arrival to the crime scene, on arrival to a crime scene where someone dies of an obviously unnatural cause, the scene is generally treated as a homicide. So
Yes.
unless it looks like that person dropped dead of a heart attack or whatever, if it's a matter of a brick falling off a building and crushing your head, getting hit by a car, whatever the case may be, typically they're going to handle the scene as if it's a homicide, because it's just better safe than sorry. One of the first deputies to arrive, who no longer works at that department, said that they took Jeremy Banks' side of the story just automatically. Okay, she committed suicide. You're good. She's the one. She's the one that noted that normally they would treat a scene like that as a murder, but just immediately everybody on the scene was referring to it as a suicide, just automatically.
Automatically assuming
Yes,
that's the wrong way to go about an investigation.
Well, not if it's your buddy.
Well,
now the deputy that kind of that spilled the beans on that, about them approaching it that way, was eventually fired from the St. John's Sheriff's Department for untruthfulness.
lying.
She said it was actually because she refused to lie in another case, but that's a whole other thing. I don't really want to go in on, but I think it's important just to kind of point out what kind of department this one is. All right, here's the investigative basics that they did not perform on this scene. They did not canvass the neighborhood for witnesses. They did not interview Michelle's family. They did not isolate Deputy Jeremy Banks to interview and photograph him in a structured environment.
That seems standard.
Yeah, all the stuff that, everybody would normally do, none of it. Now, here's Jeremy's side of the story. They attended a Paramore concert with each other. Ugh.
Yeah, I would have left that part out. I would have said somebody else.
They argued before, during, and after the concert. On the way back, she told him that she will take all of her stuff from his place. He asked if they were breaking up. She said, yeah. They argued some more. He claims by the time they got to his place, they were fine. They got all the arguing out of their system. Once they get there, she goes in and starts packing her stuff. Jeremy is hanging out with some friends in his garage, like King of the Hill or whatever.
Yeah.
She goes outside, grabs something from her car, and goes back in. His friends leave. Now he's just hanging out and sitting on his motorcycle in his garage by himself, as one does. He says while in that garage, he heard a gunshot and immediately rushed inside. He said that his bedroom door was locked and he screamed her name, but then heard another gunshot. He then claimed he ran to the living room and grabbed his phone before kicking the bedroom door open. There he found her laying on the floor with his service pistol on the ground next to her. There's nothing else in the investigation.
Okay, I got several questions here.
Okay.
Normally, as a officer, where would your service pistol be? Would you not be on the person, or would it be locked up in their desk at work?
No, they do tend to bring them home. Now, whenever they bring them home, I mean, they ain't like they just go around carrying them everywhere. That they are generally advised to secure it, and I believe there is something mentioned about that later. I can't remember. It's been a while since I wrote this one.
And with him being probably a gun expert, he would probably have a gun safe with biometrics on it or something that would require possibly his fingerprint or something open.
They were dating. He lived alone, and as far as I remember, I don't think he had any kids. So, yeah. I mean, keep in mind, this is Florida. He's a Florida man.
Yeah. And 2 gunshots?
2 gunshots.
Did she miss? Make sure it was loaded?
Finish my story?
Yeah, I'm just putting some questions out there.
All right. Well, some of these will probably be answered. Now, the family, once all this stuff started, they petitioned for a medical examiner outside of St. Johns County to perform the autopsy. But the sheriff refused.
Of St. Johns County.
Uh-huh. The medical examiner quickly found the cause of death as suicide by self-inflicted gunshot. Also, the pills in her pocket, none were in her system, and they were Jeremy's pills. Once they did a count, all of them were accounted for.
So why did she have them? Yeah.
They weren't taken. I mean, like, she didn't ingest them, and nobody had, so it's kind of weird.
Yeah. Just added to the scene.
Yep. Michelle's family did not give up, and they petitioned the governor to have her death investigated. It's like, okay, fine, I'm going to go over your head because, Sheriff, you're obviously a bit biased.
Yeah. You've been bought.
Yeah. They obliged her and had the Florida Department of Law Enforcement investigator named Rusty Rogers assigned to the case. First thing he did after reading everything was canvass the neighborhood.
Go figure.
Yeah. 2 different women in that apartment complex claimed to have heard a woman scream for help twice before hearing the 2 gunshots. As for the 2 gunshots, in some cases, suicide by gun, it's not uncommon for people to test fire a shot to make sure that the gun works.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's a thing that it's not uncommon, so it does happen. He interviewed Michelle's then 5-year-old daughter, who said that she saw Jeremy hit her mom with a belt.
Damn.
When Rogers asked Jeremy about this, he said he only ever put his hands on her when he needed to restrain her after she charged him. was in self-defense. The other part that didn't make sense to him was how she shot herself. Banks' pistol had a tack light on it, which is basically a gun flashlight.
Yeah,
where it's like that you got your gun and then you got your light on there.
Flashlight underneath it.
Yeah, that makes the front of the gun pretty bulky. And Michelle's gunshot wound was through her mouth.
Yeah,
so you got
couldn't get it.
Just it is a
Yeah.
Most of the times it'd be like in the movies, put the gun in your mouth and aim for the brain. You
shoot it up.
Yeah, shoot it upwards. That wouldn't work here because of that tack light. And her injury had the gun aiming downward because her death was because the bullet severed her spine. So instead of up, it was down.
What is she doing?
People are just listening. I'm putting my finger in my mouth. It's really sexy. All right, but yeah, no, she had the gun in her mouth and pointed downward, and it went down and through her spine, and that's how she died.
Jeez, I actually got lucky that way.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to call it luck.
Rogers, that investigator, worked to recreate the crime scene based on where the gun fell and where the shell casings were, because it was an automatic, so it ejects the shells after every shot. They concluded that she would not be able to do this herself. Whenever they were working to recreate the crime scene, they could not make it where that angle would happen and her die that way and things fall the way that they fell. Rogers took his findings to the original medical examiner that listed her death as a suicide. According to the new information, the medical examiner felt that Michelle's death was likely a homicide and filled out an amended death certificate. The problem is he never officially filed it. He changed it, but whenever he went to send it, the documents to the state attorney, he was told to hold off on filing it. Yeah.
Who told him to hold it off? Just the powers that be?
Yeah, essentially. Then the state medical examiner's office, so the state medical examiner's office of Florida, reprimanded this medical examiner for keeping documents at his home and put a new medical examiner in his place. The new guy looked at the new investigation and said, "Yep, it's a suicide."
Put somebody in there to agree with them.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of that going on right now.
Yeah. Now, the sheriff was not going to take all of this lying down and fired back with a 152-page review of their case, talking about how good his department did. He also criticized the crime scene recreation because they did it outdoors. Duh. If you look at like the crime scene photos, there wasn't a whole lot around her, so it wasn't anything where they were like going to be messing it up because it's like, okay, well, all this furniture has to be placed exactly. It's like, here's a bed, there's a wall, you can do this outside. Done.
Where did they find her body? Like, was she? You said she was locked in the bedroom, but where? Like on the bed or on the floor?
Beside it. She was on the floor.
Okay.
Now, Banks, boyfriend of the year, also fired back by suing the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and Rusty Rogers for violating his civil rights because they had him detained at one point for their investigation.
How dare them do their job?
I know, the nerve. I mean, like, who does that?
The audacity.
His case was thrown out. Everybody's like, all right, come on, dude. You're pushing your luck here. Shut the fuck up. The state attorney mentioned earlier, the one that, didn't get the documents or whatever, had a meeting with the family and told them they were done and closing the case because they didn't feel that there's just enough evidence. Michelle's family did not take that advice and did not give up and had her body exhumed for an independent autopsy by a forensic pathologist and former deputy chief medical examiner of Orange County, Florida, that agreed to do it all for free.
Oh,
Yeah.
you would think they would go out of state at this point.
Yeah. Well, his job was to review the previous autopsy and perform a new one. One of the first things that he found was her jaw was broken.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Or he took a left or a right.
Yeah. The sheriff's response was to call them reprehensible for violating Michelle's rest. How dare you?
How dare you get up
you
and
have
get
your
right
daughter
answers?
dug up and just accept it and move the hell on?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Not take our word. Come on.
Come on. The big deal about this was that the injury was never listed in the original autopsy. And that is a major finding.
Yes.
Gunshot wound through the mouth, a broken jaw, that's kind of a big deal. The other thing he found was that the gunshot put a hole in her tongue, but her teeth and the rest of her mouth was fine. This indicates that her jaw was not broken by the violence of the gunshot. There is a lot of soft tissue in your mouth, and if the gunshot had been what broke her jaw, all that soft tissue in her mouth would have been torn apart.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying. He would have ripped her gums apart. He would have ripped her teeth out. He would have done all of that.
Yeah. So all his findings indicate that she was struck first. The gun was then put deep into her mouth where it pressed her tongue down and then shot.
Damn.
Yeah. I'd like to note that I left out anything that wasn't really physical evidence or something the initial investigation uncovered. The family was well aware that Michelle planned on dumping him and was said to be, looking forward to moving on. So everybody knew all that stuff. I mean, wasn't anything new being learned. And unfortunately, this is where I will leave this one off because no one in power is willing to investigate this.
I got one question.
Okay.
You said the gun was fired twice, and you said it was not that often, or it's
not uncommon.
Not uncommon for them to take test fire shot.
Right.
Did they recover the test fire shot?
That I never saw.
Hmm.
Remember, they didn't exactly look for shit.
Right. Okay. Yeah, okay. True. I didn't know if the medical examiner was able to find a second shot or if there was a recovered bullet from somewhere else. Damn.
All right. So there is something that did happen outside of the investigation that I just wanted to bring up. A civilian investigator, so like pretty much like a
internet
sleuth, was working with the family and their private investigator, and he was murdered in his condo in St. Johns County, Florida in 2019. On this case, St. Johns County recused themselves from the case, and another county investigated it. Like what they probably should have done with Michelle's case.
Mm-hmm. They're helping their boy out.
Their investigators say, at this other county, say they haven't found anything relating this investigator's death to the Michelle O'Connell investigation. That being said, this person lived in a neighborhood that had a security guard at the entrance to check people's driver's license of, guests before they go in. You had to have a security code to open the gate and a special key to access the buildings in the condo.
Dang.
Now, with all that being said, they have no suspects. Now that's where I'll leave this off.
Well,
Wait,
you said
good
he
job,
was
Florida.
murdered.
Yeah,
You said he was murdered. Like, how was
we
his
shot.
murder? Shot in the face, shot in
Sure
the back of
shot.
the
I
head.
don't remember. He's dead.
Well, I'm just. Did they make
He's
it look like a suicide too?
No, this one is not being ruled a suicide. This one is listed as a murder, and there is a murder investigation.
I mean, just nobody's
But just
doing
no
anything about it.
suspects and nothing tied to the that law enforcement agency that he felt was covering something up.
Wow.
That case is very frustrating. It's very
Yeah.
frustrating.
A lot of people not want to do anything.
All right, I'll do another one. Then get us even more frustrated.
All right, let's do it.
All right, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania,
Man, you
around
go to Pennsylvania a lot.
apparently. Around 5:30 p.m. on January 26, 2011, Samuel Goldberg left the gym in his apartment complex. It's one of those apartments that has the gym inside of it. Mm-hmm. Upon arriving at his apartment, after unlocking the door, he found the apartment was locked from the inside.
Like a chain lock?
It was actually one of those latch locks, like you see on hotel room doors, where it latches over and there's that ball.
Mm-hmm.
He called and texted his fiancée, elementary school teacher Ellen Greenberg, who lived with him, but all of his calls went unanswered for an entire hour. After trying his phone and shouting for Ellen to open the door, he goes to the apartment doorman to get help entering the apartment. The doorman said, "I'm not allowed to break the locks off of apartments. I can't do that."
Mm-hmm.
So Samuel, without anybody seeing him do it, breaks down the door and finds Ellen in a sitting position, leaning against a cabinet in the kitchen. At 6:31, so it's now been an hour and 1 minute since he left the gym, Samuel calls 911. There are some odd things in the transcript of the 911 call, such as the operator saying she'll walk him through CPR, and his response was, "I have to, right?" When they tell him to lay her on her, when they tell him to lay her on her back, he says that she was already on her back. It's important to remember that when he first found her, she was leaning against the cabinet in a sitting position. Yes. He then says her shirt won't come off, then shouts, "Oh my God, she stabbed herself. She fell on a knife. I don't know how her knife is sticking out. There's a knife sticking out of her heart."
What?
911 operator asks him, "She stabbed herself?" His response, "I guess so. I don't know. Or she fell on it. I don't know."
She fell on it. Good old fall on an excuse.
Yeah. Always works. This was all in a quick period because the first responders arrived at 6:36. So 5 minutes after he called 911, which I'm like, wow, Philly. And that's kind of shocking. It must be a really nice apartment complex. They're like, "Hurry, rich people." The investigation report says that Ellen's body was leaning against the cabinet when they arrived, which means Sam either lied about attempting CPR or attempted CPR and then put her back before they arrived. And neither one of those make any sense.
Mm-mm.
Ellen Greenberg was pronounced dead on the scene at 6:40. From there, they took Samuel into custody for questioning in the presence of an attorney, and Ellen was taken to the medical examiner. They found 20 stab wounds on Ellen.
Holy
8 in
crap.
her chest, 1 in her abdomen, 1 in her scalp, and 10 to the back of her neck.
Damn.
The stab wounds to her chest and abdomen went through her shirt. They also found bruises on her arms and legs. The medical examiner submits a draft autopsy report with the cause of death as homicide through stabbing. About 2 weeks after the autopsy, the medical examiner listed the cause of death as suicide.
Oh, I'm just going to stab myself 20 times until I
20
get it
times.
right.
Yeah.
Right in the back of my neck and my stomach.
He based this on the testimony that said that the door was locked from the inside. And then beginning 1 month before her death until 2 weeks before her death, there were Google searches on her computer for suffocation, suicide method, sex fantasy death, model death, Prozac side effect benefits, sertraline, girl electrocuted to death trying to Twitter in the bath, Twitter bath death picture, quick suicide, an article about euthanasia, and painless suicide. Just a reminder, folks, to clear your search history because it is easy to make judgments based on those.
Yeah, that's not what they would find on mine.
Yeah, it's, yours would be like big black. Never mind. Anyway, so I'm, just preparing for this episode. I kept, like while I was looking stuff up, Google kept offering me help if I'm suicidal. They're like,
The
you sure are
chatbot
typing
pops
the
up.
word suicide a lot. Are you okay? I'm like, okay, search history clear. They also made some assumptions based on her prescriptions. Alprazolam, also known as Xanax, which is used for anxiety. It is one of the drugs with that has suicidal ideation as a side effect. Clonazepam, also known as Klonopin, which is used for anxiety as well.
That's a good one. No, I have that one prescribed to me.
I'm glad. Zolpidem, also known as Ambien,
Ambien. What?
to make you sleepy.
Oh, it does more than that, boy.
She also kept a journal of her medications along with her state of mind while she took them.
Oh, is that experimenting?
Well, furthermore, she went to a psychiatrist, so she was obviously crazy. Because that's what crazy people do. Go to psychiatrists.
I know crazy people don't seek out help.
All right. So that based on all that, medical examiner's like, yep, she stabbed herself 20 times. Locked the door from the inside because boyfriend said so. Search history had suicide in there, and I guarantee you, she was the one that did it.
Yeah, nobody else can use computer.
And then she went to a psychiatrist, and one of her prescriptions had suicidal ideation as a side effect. So now that we've looked at things from a high level, let's take a deeper look at that timeline. Other than Sam, the last person to hear her voice was a restaurant that she called on January 26 at January 26, 2011 at 2:30 p.m. So, 4 hours before the 911 call. Following that is a text message from Ellen's phone that I can't find what was sent, but it was sent at 3:47 p.m. I bring it up because the Attorney General cited her text messages as one of the reasons they believed it was a suicide. At 4:46, there's activity on Ellen's computer, but the internet history I saw only went to the day before. So I don't know what was done there. I mean, I was actually looking at her internet history when I was reading all that stuff, and it stopped the day before her suicide. But they know that she was on there. At 4:50 p.m., Samuel is seen on a video going into the gym on the first floor of the apartment complex. He exits that gym at 5:26. At 6:14, Samuel calls his cousin, Kamian Schwartzman. Kamian was a lawyer. So
What do I do?
before he called 911, he called his cousin that's a lawyer. Sam then receives a call at 6:26 p.m. from his uncle, James Schwartzman. James was also an attorney, but he was pretty prominent. He was a former prosecutor. He was prominent enough to serve on the disciplinary board of the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. He eventually went on to be appointed by the governor of Pennsylvania as the president judge of the Court of Judicial Discipline. So kind of a big deal. Now, finally, at 6:31, Sam calls 911. So he spent 17 minutes talking to family lawyers.
Yeah. To get his shit straight.
Yeah. Before he calls 911.
But how stupid are people? Do they know they're going to check their phone and they're going to see who they call before they call 911?
I don't think that Sam Goldberg is. It's not like he's getting away with murder because he's smart.
I don't know.
All right. Whenever he called at 6:31, he had been out of that gym for nearly an hour. His cousin and his uncle both came to the crime scene and were present at the scene before Ellen was pronounced dead at 6:40.
That's weird.
So the cops get there at 6:36. These guys are, get there, and before, sometime in there, they were already there. There's plenty of time that is unaccounted for. Now, I do not fault him for getting an attorney. As a true crime nut, if there's a crime around me and police want to talk to me, they will need to do so with my lawyer. That's just common sense. I mean, anytime you're talking to a police person in an interrogation setting, it's less that they're trying to get to the truth and more that they're just trying to get you arrested.
Yeah, they're trying to get you to stumble on something. Whoa.
Yeah. However, calling your lawyer before you call 911 could appear as the actions of someone with very skewed priorities.
Somebody that's guilty.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's not important to find out what happened. It's not important to try to save her life. It's important to cover your ass. So, yeah. I mean, that's what the way that looks.
Yeah, well, I just messed up. What do I do?
Yeah. Things get even more hinky because the very next day, Sam's influential uncle, James, contacted the apartment manager. According to the apartment manager, James asked if he could get access to the apartment to get Sam a suit for Ellen's funeral. The apartment manager did the exact right thing and contacted the police. The police did the exact wrong thing and said, yeah, the crime scene is released and feel free to call a crime scene cleanup service to clean the apartment. The apartment manager, once again, trying to do the right thing, made sure to do a video walkthrough of the apartment before giving that guy access. Yeah. Because of this, we know that James Schwartzman took cell phones, laptops, and what is only referred to as other items.
The murder weapon, probably.
I doubt that. But,
or anything that could be.
Already had a knife sticking out of her.
Oh, but yeah. Duh.
The stuff that would have an electronic footprint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Furthermore, the crime scene was cleaned up. The very next day, the Philadelphia police executed a search warrant to see a professionally cleaned apartment. They hadn't even searched everything. And then they let it get cleaned. Then the day after that, so January 29th, they received the cell phone and laptops from James Schwartzman after he had them for 2 days.
Delete.
Yeah. Ellen's family did not take this lying down and got a forensic pathologist to review the medical examiner report. They also had a forensic neuropathologist as well that and had the scene reviewed by a crime investigative analyst. So they're like, all right, now we're going to get experts looking at this. The forensic pathologist noted that the stab wounds were not uniform in their direction. 5 wounds were done vertically, left to right. 4 were straight vertical, and one was done horizontally.
So you can stab on her way down, and then stabbed as she's laying down.
Well, yeah, because you're not sitting still when you're getting stabbed.
No.
They also noted the rarity of a suicide by stabbing yourself in the back of the neck.
Jab, jab.
Yeah. It was also noted that the stab wounds to the torso were all through her shirt. And typically, suicide by stabbing, the people that do this crazy ass method go for direct skin. You don't want something that's going to slow that blade down.
Yeah.
It was also noted that there was no reported indication if the knife had been fingerprinted.
For the first thing they should have done.
Oh, yeah, no. They did. Told you, this stuff's just infuriating. All right. It was also noted that Ellen had multiple bruises of varying age on her arms, leg, and abdomen. The bruises on her legs were round and in a vertical row. So
knuckles,
more like a grab, more like a squeeze. Based on the signs of the body, the interview with her psychiatrist, and pictures of the crime scenes, things look very likely to be a homicide. The neuropathologist review was far more succinct. He noted that the stab wound on her head showed evidence that it had penetrated the cranial cavity deep enough to sever nerves and pierce the brain.
Holy crap.
This is important that, being that the knife was embedded in her chest, and the wound to her brain would make stabbing yourself in the chest considerably more difficult.
Yeah, that's going to be my next question. Did they know the sequence of the stabs?
There's some, I believe they're not of each one individually, first, second, third, fourth, but there are some that do look to be later. He also noted evidence of strangulation, seeing a fingernail mark and bruising on her neck and strap muscles that were compatible to strangulation patterns. He also didn't mince words, saying the mixture of old and fresh bruises along with the patterns were consistent with repeated beatings.
Jesus.
He also found that the scene was indicative of a homicide.
Well, I think we would have investigated that, and we would have came to that same conclusion.
Helen Keller would investigate that and come to the same conclusion.
Oh, man.
She'd be like, anyway. Finally, the crime scene analyst reviewed all the photographs as well as the available case documents. The first thing he noted was that the latch lock was the only thing that was damaged. There was no damage on the door or the door jamb like you would normally see in a forceful break-in. Now, in my personal uninformed opinion, whenever I've looked at the pictures, it's weird that only one side of the lock is partially pulled out of the door. The part that has the actual latch, on the door, there's like no damage.
Oh, I see what happened.
It probably from the inside pulled really hard until it broke through. That's just, my uninformed imagination, so nobody can sue me. He also noted that the initial stabs did not bleed excessively, but were done while she was standing. There were vertical drops on her shoes. Mm-hmm. So, stab
down. Yeah.
Be able to drip down onto her shoes. Eventually, she goes down with her hair smearing blood on her way to the ground. So there's like a blood streak on the wall from where her hair was like putting blood on the wall in like a paintbrush almost. Then the attacks continued based on the splatter and the pooling of blood until she died. Based on the number and types of wounds along with the bloodstain patterns, he also found everything consistent with homicide.
How deep were the stab wounds? Did they say what size the knife
was? embedded in her chest.
I mean, is it a butcher knife? Is it a pocket knife?
I think it was like It's like a steak knife or a big steak knife.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a visual of how big this knife is.
Yeah, well, it's not no little pocket knife. I mean, you try to stab a pocket knife through your brain, that thing, that the hinge on
Blade will
that's going to
probably
break. Yeah. The Pennsylvania Attorney General responded to the findings, saying those reports did not bring any new facts to light, and we stand by the suicide ruling.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. Her family has been fighting this in court for over a decade. So rather than attempting to investigate Ellen's death or why, despite the evidence, despite the evidence, a proper investigation was done, they continue to fight her family to prevent the cause of death to be changed. It's just, it's weird. Unfortunately, in this case, the fight is not over yet. There have been updates to court cases involving this as recent as April 2024. So, hopefully some more stuff will end up happening here and somebody with some power will actually investigate this.
Yeah. I have a question about if there's a murder in a state and they don't get cooperation in that state, could they transfer that trial to another state and have it tried there?
A judge, I think, would have to be involved in that, and even then, they wouldn't go to a state. They could petition, like if law enforcement's having trouble investigating something, they can ask for FBI cooperation. The FBI doesn't really inject themselves into stuff like that, and even then, they wouldn't just go just because some family asked. They would have to be investigating those agencies for like other things to uncover it to end up getting some sort of investigation like that. It's really they done what they're supposed to. They the started at the city level, went to county, went to state level, and they just keep that uncle has got some pretty heavy sway. I mean, he's been appointed to a position by the governor.
You said this was Pennsylvania, right?
Yep.
Man.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've been going on and on about these two cases that the investigators didn't even hide their lack of effort.
No.
Nobody even tried to hide it.
Yeah, you don't have to.
And unfortunately, there are a lot more cases like this. I just stopped on these two because this has been a decently long episode, and I knew it was going to be. So if any of you out there want a part 2, please let us know. Throw it in the comments on whatever it is that you're.
You got my vote.
Watching this or listening.
Yeah.
Or emails, Facebook, Twitter. I don't care. Talk to me. I'm lonely. And I'll give you a part 2 if you just talk to me. All right. With that being said, I want to have it on the record that I don't want to hurt myself. And if I end up killed, know that someone else did it. All right. Cool. Now that I've ruined, now that I've ruined Jason's weekend plans, join us next week when Jason will tell us about some stuff that'll hopefully make us say, Waywut.
Later.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Waywut. We really appreciate it. Remember that we post episodes every Tuesday, and we'll throw an extra one on Fridays if we feel like it. Don't count on it. You never know. We would love for you to follow and rate us, review us, anything on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or Pandora, or just wherever else you listen to the podcast at. If you're watching this on YouTube, throw us a comment, subscribe, notification bell, do all the things that YouTube likes for you to do so that, makes other people actually possibly find our videos. You can also stalk us on Facebook, X, or TikTok. Just search for the handle Waywut Podcast, W-A-Y-W-U-T Podcast. Once again, thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit, and join us next time. We'll get you to say, Waywut.